Alright troops, VR Vampi here, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Today we are continuing on with the Legacy of Kain series, and we're going to be talking about Soul Reaver today. I've already spoke about Blood Omen. If you haven't watched that, please go back. I'll put the link in the description and you can go and watch that before you come and watch this. I'm hoping that more people will probably know Soul Reaver because, it's at least came out in 1999. It came out for the PlayStation in 1999 and Windows, and then it was ported in 2000 for the Dreamcast. And it was developed by Crystal Dynamics, and it was published by Eidos Interactive. So here we are at Soul Reaver with our brand new main character, Raziel. First off, I'd like to say I loved this game. I probably played this game before I actually played Blood Omen because this was more well known to me in the time than what Blood Omen was. I played the shit out of this game, I'm not gonna lie. I loved it. I probably completed it I don't know how many times, and then after a couple of days I'd be like, I'm just going to play Soul Reaver again. So I love this game. And why I loved this game was the graphics, because the cinematic part of the graphics were really, really good compared to Blood Omen. And also just the gameplay and the voice acting. You could tell that the people who did the voice acting in this put 100% into it. Like, you could feel the hate that Raziel had for Kain every single time he spoke about him. You could just feel it. So the voice acting was absolutely fantastic for the people who did the voice acting, and it was a really good story. And yeah, it's very like Blood Omen. You know what happens to Raziel, which we'll go through the story soon. But obviously most of you will probably know. He's betrayed by Kain and he wants his revenge, very much how, Kain wanted revenge on the people who assassinated him and finding out who actually hired the people to assassinate him. But we also knew there was all like a reason for everything to happen. We spoke about that. And this game was just amazing. Gameplay, let's talk about the gameplay first. So, gameplay, I always find it really good at the game for gameplay. I love the fact that even though our wings are destroyed, we could use them to glide. So if there was like a really long jump, you could kind of glide there. I love the fact that there were certain walls that were climbable. They had like kind of wiggly lines on them, so you knew they were climbable, and you could use your claws, and it made that kind of chink chink noise every time he dug his claws in and climbed up a wall. The only thing I would say that was annoying, but it didn't really ruin the game for me, it was just a wee bit annoying, was when you finally get the Soul Reaver, and obviously the it looks like it's a wraith. It's proper looking how it's meant to be. And you're in the real realm of Nosgoth, because we're still in Nosgoth. That as soon as you get hit, you lose it. Like, it's gone. And you have to swallow more souls to, get your life back up to full, to have it back again. I kind of find it easier just grabbing like the different staffs and spears and stuff like that they had hanging on walls and that to kill things. I just thought it was easier, so I did. But I liked it, and I always remember I had one of the cheat discs, but it was to change the colour of your sabre, so I could make it all different colours, and it was really cool. I could make it yellow, I could make it red, I could make it, I think it was originally green, and it could be blue, but I feel it's when you're in the other world, because you can die in this, well, you don't really die. When your life runs out, you go into a different realm. It's like a realm of the dead, where all the souls are, and there's these creatures that are eating on souls. They're like lost souls that can never ever find their way. So they turn into these creatures and they eat other souls. You have your sabre the whole entire time. It doesn't matter how many times you get hit, you keep your saber, which is handy to kill these things because they kind of jump at you, and sometimes dodging them is difficult. So, and then you would eat as many souls as possible, go back with your powers to go back into the normal world of Nosgoth, and you would have your saber back again. And then if you get hit once, you would lose it. So I always just found it easier just to use a weapon rather than the one that was attached to my hand. But apart from that, I really enjoyed the gameplay. I loved the fact that there was teleporters. Further on that you went to each different area to look for different clans, because each vampire has their own clan. And they had their own symbols as well. That's why they wear the kind of wee, looks like a wee sash that hangs down like a wee half a cape. And this is what Raziel ends up wrapping around his face to hide the fact that he's not got a jaw. When he goes to each clan, there's a teleporter that you can stand on and you activate it, and that means if you need to go away back to another clan area later on, all you need to do is step on the teleporter, which is a lot easier. Saving was easy enough in the game, and it was just really a really good game. There was different types of vampires because obviously each brother had evolved differently, so they had different types of vampires and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed the gameplay in this. So I'm going to speak about the characters, but I'm going to speak about them as we go through the story. Each time we come up to a certain character in the actual game, that is when I'm going to kind of give you a wee bit more detail on that. So let's just go into the story. So what I want to do first is I'm going to show you the first cinematic scene at the very beginning of the game, just to show you how well done that this is gripping for the start. So it is. I'm going to play that, let you watch it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to speak about it. So let's do that.
Cain is deified. The clans tell tales of him. Few know the truth. He was mortal once, as were we all. However, his contempt for humanity drove him to create me and my brethren. I am Raziel, firstborn of his lieutenants. I stood with Cain and my brethren at the dawn of the Empire. I have served him a millennium. Over time, we became less human and more divine. Cain would enter the state of change and emerge with a new gift. Some years after the Master, our evolution would follow, until I had the honor of surpassing my Lord. For my transgression, I earned a new kind of reward. Agony. There was only one possible outcome. Eternal damnation. I, Raziel, was to suffer the fate of traitors and weaklings, to burn forever in the bowels of the lake of the dead. Cast him in. tumbling, burning with white-hot fire, I plunged into the depths of the abyss. Unspeakable pain, relentless agony. Time ceased to exist. Only this torture and a deepening hatred of the hypocrisy that damned me to this hell. An eternity passed, and my torment receded, bringing me back from the precipice of madness. The descent had destroyed me, and yet I lived.
Alright, so we have seen the cinematic scene, and it was very dramatic. Okay, so we first see Raziel walking out, talking about Cain, people saying that they speak about him but they don't really know. They knew he was mortal once, but they don't really know his true story of him. And he says that he's his first-born lieutenant. Now, what Raziel means by that is, and obviously at this point, Raziel does not remember this. None of his brethren or him remember that they were actually part of the Seraphim, and the Seraphim are religious vampire hunters. And Raziel was actually quite high up in the Seraphim. He basically was a Seraphim warrior inquisitor, and he was very proud of what he did, killing vampires. And the same with all his brothers. All his brothers were the same. They were all high-ranking Seraphim warriors that had died in battle at some point. And Cain entered the tomb that they were buried in, and he gave them part of his soul. But Raziel was the first to receive part of Cain's soul. So this is the reason that that Raziel actually ended up surpassing Cain when he ends up with the wings, because that's what basically he does. He's coming to show his brothers and his master, Cain, that he surpassed them in power. He has bat wings. He can fly, you know. And this is probably why, because he had the very first part of his soul, which was probably the most powerful part. So he get the best power. And the reason that each of the vampires look different, because Cain looks very, very different in this than what he did in Blood Omen. And that's not just because they thought, oh, we'll just make him look a wee bit different, and we'll, you know, and just to make it look good. It's meant to be that every single vampire goes into a period of hibernation. It's what they call an evolutionary sleep. So when they go for this sleep, they evolve in some sort of way, whether that be how they look and gain a power. And as Raziel says, that Cain had been in his sleep and he gained a power. He doesn't tell us what that power is, he just says. And that they all look more divine. And this is why they all look more divine, because they have all changed in appearance due to this. And then this is Raziel waking up from his hibernation and coming to show them how he's evolved. He's got wings, you know, which makes him better than Cain. And when we see Cain's face, it looks, he's shocked. You can see that he's shocked, and he also looks angry. And at that time, we're meant to take it as jealousy that it is. And this is why he rips the bones of the wings and then has his brothers cast Raziel into the Lake of the Dead. And to Raziel, this was unspeakable, because this is what they do to traitors and weaklings, and he's served Cain for a millennia, and he's done this to them. And these events are, 1,500 years after Blood Omen. A lot of time has passed, and if Cain has brought Raziel back, and he's also served them a millennia, well, he's served them for 1,000 years already, so it's just, this is why Raziel is so angry. He cannot understand why he would do that after everything that he's done. He was part of the council, they were all part of the council, and he's done this to him just for passing them. But we know, if you've played other games, that the look that Cain gives Raziel is more of, oh my god, things are coming true now. It's like he's seen this before. And we do know that Cain has a habit of time travelling himself. So has Cain seen this before? Has it been foretold somewhere? And now that it's coming real, Cain is like, this is the time. Because in a way, I feel like Cain feels that he has to break Raziel to make Raziel see the bigger picture of what's happening to do something else. But at this point, we don't really know much of the story, so we just take it that Cain's being jealous of being surpassed by Raziel since he made him, and decides to punish him by killing him. So it ends up that Raziel is in the Lake of the Dead for 500 years. And he suddenly wakes up. Like, there's no more pain, he doesn't feel any more pain, he's wondering what's going on, and he wakes up, he looks at his body's wrecked, he's basically bone, he doesn't have a jaw, and his wings are ruined, his wings were already ruined anyway. He has these big claws. He says he would rather be dead than, be in the body that he's in. And then we hear a voice basically telling Raziel that he is worthy. And it ends there, the cinematic scene. But then we get a wee bit more. The elder god speaking to Raziel. And he's basically telling Raziel that he's spared him for one reason, and that's to get his revenge on Cain and his brothers. And he blames Cain for how Nosgoth is, it's a wasteland because he refused to sacrifice himself for the pillars. So you actually see he's still sitting in that throne with the pillars all broken. And it's kind of weird that, he's decided to make his throne there, considering that was a big choice that he had, and he decided to benefit himself rather than to save Nosgoth, and he still kind of sits there. So straight away, everybody thinks he's just arrogant, he's become so powerful, he's arrogant. So the elder god is basically saying, due to Cain being selfish and no caring about Nosgoth by no sacrificing himself, that this elder god isn't able to spin the wheel of fates, and the souls are basically not able to go where they're supposed to go. Because this is the whole thing that we spoke about in Blood Omen, was if the curse that the vampires got for the Hilden basically meant that they were immortal and they couldn't die, so they couldn't give a soul back to the elder gods to spin in the wheel of fate. And now he's blaming Cain for that happening to everybody because of what he did to the pillars, because he never took the sacrifice. So we have all of these souls apparently lost who can't go where they're supposed to go, and Cain's getting the blame for it. So he reckons if he uses Raziel to go and kill them all and to take all their powers, that they'll be able to spin the Wheel of Fate again, and the souls will be able to go where they go. Raziel doesn't really care about this. He is just thinking more about, he wants his revenge. That's all he wants at this point, is revenge on Cain for what he done. So, on he goes. But then, as you go through, you can see that Raziel's weak, because obviously he's been in the Lake of the Dead for 500 years and he hasn't eaten anything. But he tells the Elder God that, he doesn't have to taste the blood anymore. And this is new because he's become what the Elder God calls him, the Eater of Souls, a wraith. So instead of consuming blood, Raziel needs to consume souls to survive. And then this is when we see the wee creatures that are going about eating the other souls and stuff like that. So when Raziel goes into the other world and sees how bad it looks, he's like, what happened? And he's been dead for like 500 years, and things have kind of went, from bad to worse. And straight away he's like, what happened to my clan? Because each vampire has a clan, their own vampires that they're in charge of, in a certain area. And he's wondering, well, if they've done what they've done to me, what has become of my clan? So he wants to find his clan, plus he wants to find his brothers because he wants to kill his brothers, and he wants to kill Cain. So, guess we're going to look for our clan first. So Raziel completely wiped it. Raziel knows straight away that Cain has probably killed his entire clan. And he travels a bit further and he notices the symbol for Malachi. He's a brother. Now, this is when I'm going to speak about the characters. So, Malachi is the first boss that Raziel goes up against. And Malachi was born a human, as we know, because he was part of the Seraphim. And he became an elite Seraphim commander. And he was murdered by Raziel. And I know this is complicated, guys, at this time, especially if you have not seen these games, but there's a lot of time traveling in this and all the games. In the first one, Cain time travels, he goes back in time, and in this and the other ones is the same. So Raziel basically has killed most of the Seraphim as who he is now, but doesn't remember. And then Cain has entered the tomb and obviously gave them their gift, which is part of his soul, and brought them back. But Malachi was the last born, which means he got least of Cain's gift. And because of this, even his skin is very, very frail. Excuse me. And you can actually hear Raziel talking about seeing one of his vampires and how they kind of look like their skin's deteriorating, almost like they're kind of like zombie vampires, because they have gained, from him this kind of pitiful, lowest of the vampires type of gift. So, when we when Raziel finally decides to travel to get Malachi, and he hears a voice, and he just simply is like, come out of the shadows, creature, and then he realises it's his brother Malachi. He has evolved into something grotesque because obviously his powers were, the least. He looks like a massive slug with teeth, and he only looks like he's got a bottom set of teeth as well. And he has like these wee suckers on his fingers and these big spiky things, and he just looks grotesque. And even him himself hates the way he looks. He tells Raziel that he hates, do you think I like how I look? And this is how he's evolved, because obviously 500 years is a long time. They've all went into different hibernation sleeps and they've all evolved in some way, and this is how he's evolved. So the fight scene and for Malachi is actually kind of fun. It's not too hard. It's what you would expect a first boss to be. You have he has the ability to phase through fences and gates and things like that. So Raziel is trying to get him in the middle because there's like a big grinder at the top of the ceiling, and he's like chasing you because you try and hit him and you realise you can't hurt him at all, and he just laughs at you. So what Raziel has to do is run away, and there's levers that you have to kind of pull. This is to raise up the grinder, and then you need to get him to go in the middle to then get to the other lever to activate it to come down, and that was what kills him. Once you kill him, he actually is happy. I think he makes a comment. You actually hear him say something. Release at last, I think he says when he dies. And then Raziel receives his power. So now you have the ability to phase through gates and fences and things like that, which I think it's quite good because you're able to get to certain places to get these kind of look like diamond shaped. They go in your little spiral health, and it makes your health larger, very much like you could in Blood Omen. You would pick up the veils that would make your bloods higher and things like that as well. So he asks before he kills Malachi where Cain is. So I guess we're going on the hunt to look for Cain. We have the ability to phase through things. We're able to go back to the old clan where the pillars are, the council. And when we go in there, Cain's there. And it's almost like he's waiting for Raziel, because it startles Raziel. When he says his name, he kind of jumps back. So Cain obviously starts off with being Cain and saying that the Lake of the Dead has no been kind to him. And as Raziel says, I am your creation once again, since, he's kind of made him twice. And they basically speak about what has happened. Raziel tells him that, everything that has happened is because of him. And Cain gets mad and basically tells Raziel that he will never know what it's like to basically have that massive pressure of making that choice of sacrifice, and that he can't judge Cain until that ever happens to him. That he has this massive decision on his shoulders that if he doesn't sacrifice himself, Nosgoth is, going to be like a wasteland and stuff like that, which obviously that's what he does. He doesn't sacrifice himself. And the guilt that he's felt for no doing it, no sacrificing himself. So they talk about, and Raziel basically says that he would do the right thing if it was his choice. And Cain just basically says that time's changing, that the pillars have outgrown their use, and so has he. And this is your next kind of boss battle. And if we want to remember, Cain keeps kind of teleporting. He teleports, and you kind of work out where he's teleporting to get up there and hit him and dodge and all that sort of stuff. And you need to hide behind the pillars because he's got that kind of electrical thing so it doesn't hit you. And you end up, you do weaken Cain, but then he electrocutes you and he strikes you with the Soul Reaver. And we remember what the Soul Reaver is. The Soul Reaver is the sword that has the energy from the pillars. It is, I think Raziel says in the story, it's known to be possessed because it has its own soul. And it eats other people's soul, whoever you strike with it. And when he strikes Raziel, it breaks. It shatters into pieces. And Cain basically says, so it unfolds. And he disappears, but he's laughing. And Raziel makes a comment that he thought he saw like the glint, happiness in his eyes for losing the Reaver. And then we see we're back in the spectral realm, and we see the Reaver in front of us, and it's all wibbly and wobbly because obviously it's spectral. And Raziel picks it up and it becomes attached to his arm. It's like all the way up his arm. And we hear the Elder God telling us that it is now bound to Raziel, and it's now showing its true form as a wraith blade, as it was always meant to be. It was always like a wraith blade, but like with metal on top of it so other people could handle it. Now it's bound to Raziel and Raziel only. So we also know that there's more than one Soul Reaver as well. I mean, I don't know if there is actually only one, but because they time travel a lot, they always end up getting another one. I don't know. Anyway, we will probably find that out the further we go. So, now we have Raziel with the Wraithblade by himself. Cain's teleported away, and we hear a voice. And it's a voice that we know. It's Ariel from Blood Omen, yes. As you remember, Ariel was the guardian of balance. She was murdered. She was part of the Circle of Nine to look after the pillars, and she was murdered, and her lover Nepractor had went mad, and the madness spread through the Circle of Nine, and that's how the pillars became corrupted in the first place. And on her death, Cain was chosen to replace her, but because Nepractor had went crazy, the madness had also spread to Cain, so he would have never been able to fulfill his part of the job. Plus Mortanis, who killed Ariel, who was possessed by the Hilden, also also got Cain assassinated and brought him back as a vampire. So there was no chance that he would have been able to do his part. So this is why it was up to Cain to take his life, because he was the balance. He was the last person to be able to bring them back after bringing all the other tokens and repairing all the other pillars. And he wouldn't do it. So this is where we're at, and she comes out and she basically thinks that he's just one of Cain's, vampires, and he says he's got no allegiance to Cain. Well, he swears, but and she's like, oh well, she says we both have a common enemy then, and she tells Raziel that he can come back at any time because she remembers things that people have forgot because she's been dead all that time, and she's bound to the pillars. It's like because the sacrifice didn't happen, she is bound there and she can't move on, and it's like a nightmare for her. There's nowhere else she can go apart from the pillars, but she remembers everything So I think now next we are going to look for the next brother, the next boss to fight. So we find our next brother, Zephon, and Zephon is exact same as before. He was a Sarafin commander. He was high up as a Sarafin and killed by Raziel, and he was given portion. He kind of looks more. He looks kind of spider-like, but he also looks. He's got the head like a xenomorph. So he does. He's got this like kind of big, massive head, and it's kind of spidery legs, and he doesn't look great at all, to be honest. So Zephon has like granite skin. He's pretty like stone, and it's really hard to kind of try and work out at first what to kill him, but we work out pretty fast that he doesn't like fire. So it's quite easy once you realise that fire's the thing to kill him, to basically kill him. So after killing Zephon, we now have the ability to scale walls, but only in the material world. And this is allowing us to kind of reach other parts. So we continue our journey, and we end up finding the Sarafin tombs. In the Sarafin tomb, we hear Raziel talking a wee bit about the Sarafin, not in a good way and a bad way. The fact that they were kind of like, the only way I can describe what they kind of see the Sarafin like is like old time witch hunters, where they used to end up killing a whole load of innocent women as soon as somebody cried witch, you know, and that's kind of how the Sarafin were with vampires. They would kill entire bloodlines and things like that. And there, he sees a movable stone, and he grabs it with his claws and he pulls it out. And when he goes in there, he finally finds the truth. He finds all of the tombs of himself and his brother, realising that he himself and his brothers were all Sarafin. And this, he just can't believe, because he now realises himself that he's killed his own kind, and the fact that Cain, his blasphemy, picked them because they were Sarafin. Almost like a joke. So when he comes out, he's met with a guardian of that temple, and he has to fight him. He is kind of like a boss, and he kind of looks like a minotaur in a funny kind of way. He's kind of weird horns and stuff like that, but he's like a boss battle anyway. So when we kill this guardian, we end up getting like a gift. It's like a telekinetic power that is connected to the Soul Reaver, which will allow us to move things that normally we wouldn't be able to move. And then we decide to go and meet our next brother, Rahab. When you get to Rahab, you actually see that Rahab is mutated into a kind of like fish. He is the only vampire who can go into water without it burning his skin. And Raziel has a conversation with Rahab, basically telling him that, or asking him, does he know what they used to be? And Rahab answers, human. And he says, no, Sarafin, we were Sarafin. But to Rahab, it doesn't matter. He purely believes that they were lost and that Cain saved them. And he also said that Cain told Rahab that Raziel would kill him. So even though Rahab has the powers of not being able to burn in the water, he still has the weakness of sunlight. So in this boss battle, it's quite easy. There's a whole load of stained glass windows keeping the sunlight out, that when you break each one of them while jumping on each of the pillars and trying to avoid the water yourself, you can kill Rahab pretty easy, which then you gain his power for being able to swim without hurting yourself. So we can now get to certain areas with water that we couldn't get to before. We end up in the ruined city, and when we go there, we find Duma. But Duma is pretty much looking dead. He's on a throne, he's chained to that throne, and he has like massive spears sticking in him. And Raziel decides to pull them out of his body, and when he does that, Duma is resurrected, and he is massive. He's way bigger than what Raziel is, and he thanks Raziel for saving him. And Raziel basically tells him, don't thank me, because I haven't forgotten that whose hands threw me into the pit, because Duma was one of the people who cast them in when obviously Cain asked them to. And he basically makes a claim that, you know, that Cain's not even his equal now. He's become more powerful through that whole time of, you know, being hibernated / dead, that he's even stronger than Cain now. And he's kind of right, because when we have a battle with him, we cannot hurt him whatsoever. What you need to do is lure him. Lure him where the furnace is, and basically turn the furnace on and kill him that way. Then you end up with a kind of a power that's it's kind of like a constricting power. It kind of goes around your enemies, but you can also move blocks and things like that, and it allows us to get into like different places that we weren't able to get in before. So Raziel ends up at the Time Streamer's chamber, the exact same chamber that Cain was at when he was speaking to Mobius, the Time Streamer. And Raziel talks about basically Cain talking about the encounter that he had with Mobius, and basically that knew that he had killed him, that the tomb lay empty. He finds a statue and he's like, oh, I take it this must be Mobius. He didn't expect him to look the way that he looked in the statue because of how Cain spoke about him. But he says he got the feeling from the statue that there was still like a great power that Mobius had, which he wasn't really wrong. When Raziel goes further into the chamber, he notices portals that allow him to see, like, you know, the past, the present and the future. And when he first looks in, he sees like when he first basically was brought back to life by the elder god, and then he sees him being struck by the soul reaver and it breaking, and he starts to wonder whether this is foretold. We see him then seeing himself in the tomb and realising that him and his brothers were Sarafin. And then we see him having another standoff with Cain. He starts to think that maybe Cain has set it all up to mess with his mind. And he wonders whether his meeting with Cain is like going to be soon, or is it going to be centuries away. But then in the next one, we see Raziel striking Ariel with his sabre, and the sabre turning yellow. And straight away he's like, no, this is madness. Like, he would never. that there would be no reason. He simply will not believe that he would do that, and he thinks that Cain has set this up for him to see and believe. And then we see him standing like at a window or like a big archway, and his saber's black and it's got like red round it, so it's an indication that he's evil in some sort of way, or he's really strong and he's in charge, but he just will not believe any of the visions that he's seen in front of him. We enter the Chamber of Time and we find Cain there. He is basically mocking us to begin with, telling us that he was expecting us sooner. He asked him if it bothered Raziel killing his brothers. Raziel hits back with, "Did it bother you to toss me in the abyss?" And Cain says no, because he had faith in him. So straight away we have Cain basically saying that all this has been shown to him, all this was meant to happen. He tells Raziel that he knew with the hate that Raziel would have, that he would come for him. He tries to explain to Raziel that everything, every single thing that has happened has been foretold, and that he centuries ago was foretold of his destiny by Mobius. And in the time chamber that they're in, he's basically learned how to kind of go back and forward within time, and he is trying to tell Raziel that there's no such thing as free will. And he's also telling Raziel that as long as one vampire remains, they are legion, they are gods. So it doesn't matter the fact that he killed all his brothers, you know. Basically, he's just pissing Raziel off at this point. So he is, but he's trying to convince Raziel that this has all been foretold at this time, and that he's just basically walking into everything that is going to happen. It has been foretold, and it's just the way it is. Raziel brings up the fact that Cain has turned Sarafan priests into vampires, and asks him how he could possibly do that. A person who is religious and, you know, a vampire hunter to be turned into a vampire. And Cain simply says, "Why wouldn't I?" You know, it's a case of, you know, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. And Raziel says it's disgusting and it's blasphemy. But Cain actually is saying to Raziel, do you actually think that the Sarafan were noble? Do you think that everything that they'd done was for the good? Because Raziel believes this, and he's disgusted the fact that him being a high up ranking Sarafan priest to be turned into the thing that he used to hunt, you know, to make the world a better place. And he's disgusted by this. But Cain knows better. Cain knows the Sarafan were no the innocent people that they claim to be. So guys, this is our final boss battle, battling Cain. And as we battle him, Cain's kind of teleporting and moving the dials in the chamber to different symbols. And then a portal opens, and with that, you're just about to kill Cain, and he gets away. And he basically tells you, you almost had me there, but this is not when the story ends. And he goes through the portal, and Raziel doesn't want to lose the opportunity to defeat Cain for what he'd done. So he follows him through the portal. And who is he met by? Mobius, the time streamer, who basically says to him, welcome to your destiny. And that's where it ends. That's where Soul Reaver ends, guys. And we are left for a while before Soul Reaver 2 comes out to wonder what the hell's going on. So, basically, I would say that Soul Reaver has a real good story, a real good end. It kind of keeps you gripped. The way it ended was in a way that you knew you were definitely going to play the second game because you wanted to know if Raziel was going to get his revenge on Cain. And not only that, you wanted to know what the bigger destiny picture was for Raziel. Was he going to be like Cain and end up having this, you know, massive choice to make and be like Cain and don't, you know, taking the best option for himself, no for others. And you just simply wanted to knew that he was going to meet Mobius, because Mobius was very good at manipulating people. Now, Raziel already knows of Mobius because Cain obviously told him everything when he met him. So he kind of has an upper hand on knowing what Mobius is like, but that's not to say that he doesn't eventually, you know, believe Mobius at some point, because Mobius hates Cain. He is the one who killed him after all. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave me a like, leave me a comment. If you're new to my channel and you enjoy my PC and VR content, please subscribe. If this does well, I will go into Soul Reaver 2 next. And then we've just got Blood Omen 2 and Legacy of Kain Defiance left to do. I would like to do the entire series, but there's no point in me doing, you know, the entire series if, you know, they're not going to do very well on the channel. The last one I did had fairly good amount of views, so that's why I decided to do this one. And I feel like this one will do well because people know Soul Reaver better than what they did Blood Omen. So guys, until next time, bye bye.